Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Laura Smith, and I will be your host. Welcome to the Network's webinar, Entrepreneurial Development. This webinar is being recorded, and we will provide you with instructions on how to access the recording and slides as soon as they are available. This webinar is brought to you by Maytech Networks. Networks is a part of Maytech, which is a member of the Center for Workforce Development in the Division of Academic and Student Affairs at the Maricopa Community Colleges, and funded in part by a grant from the National Science Foundation. Let's get started. If you're familiar with Illuminate, please raise your hand. Okay, I see some of you are, some of you are not. So let me quickly orientate you with the Illuminate system. This is a screenshot of our Illuminate session. This area right here is called the whiteboard. This is where the presentation slides will be displayed. This area is called the chat window. You can type any comments or questions into the chat box. Be sure to type them to this room so that others can follow along. And you should be aware that the moderators and presenters will be able to see all of the questions or comments typed into the chat box. So if you see colleagues, it's fine to tell them hello. Just be aware that others will see your conversation. The participants box is right above the chat box. This is where you'll see a list of everyone who is joining us today. Another interactive feature of our webinars are audience polling questions. Notice the poll buttons, A, B, C, D, and E, located above the participants box. We will ask you to click on these buttons to take a poll at the beginning of the presentation. Another interactive feature of our webinars, right below the participants box, are emoticons. Feel free to use these throughout the presentation to communicate with your audience and the presenters. And if you're asked to raise your hand again, you do so by pressing this hand and arrow button right next to the emoticons. All right, now let's get started by giving a round of applause to our presenters as I introduce them. Our presenters today are Jack Irving, Executive Director of the Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation, Susie Polito, Director of Institutional Advancement and Entrepreneurial Programs at Gateway Community College, and Russ Yelton, President and CEO of the Northern Arizona Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. Jack, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, thank you, Laura. I've joined CEI towards the end of the development in September and come with about 20 years or so of serial entrepreneurship, having taken 2 companies public, sold 2 companies, and failed a couple of times. Most recently was the Chief Marketing Officer for about a $7 billion company in Japan and spent 12 years in Silicon Valley.
Thank you, Jack. Susie, would you like to tell us more about yourself?
Yes, thank you. I started my career in sales for a Fortune 100 company and made a deliberate move into higher education about 26 years ago, and have had the opportunity to be in leadership roles in student services encompassing the recruitment arena, institutional advancement, marketing, college website, resource development, and most recently we have moved into entrepreneurial initiatives, business industry contract training, and global corporate college partnership as well. And we'll discuss more some of our initiatives as we talk about the Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation.
Thank you, Susie. And Russ, would you please tell us a little more about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Laura. Good morning, everyone. I'm with NACET. We are a 501c3 incubation management firm located in Flagstaff, Arizona. We have in Flagstaff a 10,000 square foot facility. We work primarily with high-tech companies looking to commercialize technologies domestically and internationally. We also perform tech transfer activities for Northern Arizona University and are managing consultants to Gateway and the Center for Entrepreneurial Incubation. Prior to this, I managed a 141,000 square foot incubator at a community college in Asheville, North Carolina, and I've worked with 60+ programs around the world, and I currently sit on the board of directors of the National Business Incubation Association.
Thank you, Russ. You definitely are all experts in your field. And now that we've introduced our presenters to our audience, let's take a moment to introduce our audience to our presenters. This is where the polling feature comes in. Please click on the polling letter that best describes your situation. You can read the answers right there, and just take a moment to press the button and we'll learn more about each other. Looks like we have a good mix. We'll give it another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And let's see. It looks like we're tied between people that currently have an entrepreneurship program and people that are interested in integrating entrepreneurship knowledge and skills. So it looks like this webinar is definitely going to benefit all of you. And we'll go ahead and get started with Jack Irving.
Thank you, Laura. So today, based upon our research and information in preparing for this, I want to give you a little bit of an innovation landscape. And our objectives are really to provide some vocabulary, history, perspective, information, some background on innovation, entrepreneurship, and incubators specifically. We've got a great story. The CEI story is one that is starting to take hold and lead some entrepreneurship opportunities at Gateway Community College and here in the Valley of the Sun as well. And then we'll talk about specifically what kind of opportunities are there for students, faculty, community, and generally within the marketplace. The art and science of business development through entrepreneurial programs, innovation centers, business accelerators, co-work space, and business incubators all have many facets. And quite frankly, all have a place in the entrepreneurial landscape, but all are very, very different. So let's start with a little bit of vocabulary. On one end of the continuum is the idea of providing space, or co-work space, sometimes called hot desks, sometimes called hoteling. These are limited space, very limited services and resources, and are generally used for shorter-term opportunities. They're really focused on the idea and investigation stage of someone's entrepreneurship. Examples, around, especially in the commercial real estate space, are things like Gangplank in Chandler, which is a storefront space that is used by high-tech companies, people investigating software, people investigating podcasts, and all kinds of different things. The middle part of the continuum is really the accelerator. And these are very intensive, very specific, very focused programs for entrepreneurship that are typically privately funded, that are short-term, 6 to 12 months, and are focused on personal wealth development. These are development of software programs and technologies that are looked upon to be sold, to be acquired. And there are a number of those here in the Valley of the Sun as well, AV Disruptors, Tallwave, and such. Because they're private, and one of the key attributes in this is that these are places where funding can be provided, and the accelerator owner or accelerator operator also takes an equity stake within the company. Incubators are the more disciplined, more patient approach in terms of development. Typically the programs are 2 to 5 years. Software and technology and clean technology, things like that, maybe 2 to 4 years. Bio, life science, medical devices, maybe 3 to 5 years or beyond. So they're typically used for broader company types and broader market opportunities. These are, as in the case with CEI, focused on longer-term significant companies that are focused on creating wealth, scalability, significant opportunities for employment, and more. They can be public, they can be private, and they combine a unique combination of space, resources, programs, facilities, coaching, counseling, mentoring, all of the things that assist businesses grow. Probably all seen the Valley of Death as it relates to the development of companies. Most of the companies, if you were to overlay this incubation or innovation scheme, in the far left-hand side, when people are doing the basic investigative research and setting up the companies, where funding is typically within their own pockets or bootstrapped or friends and family, is where you'll find in the co-work space. In the middle section, the valley of death, as companies look to prototype, to do their market research, to test, to acquire funding through angels or private investors. And then as companies start to emerge from that and become what are typically called startup or early stage companies, and start to create revenue and revenue opportunities where they've tested their product, they've acquired their patents, they've protected their intellectual property, and they're now prepared to go to market. At CEI, we deal with companies in the far right-hand side. These are early stage companies. And incubation, as a general topic, is a more disciplined approach, a more rigorous approach that combines an array of resources and facilities and programs and things that companies need at different points along their life cycle. So that early on, they may be looking for intellectual property and marketing help. In the middle section of their development, they may be looking to protect or expand their intellectual property. And then later on, they may be looking for import-export assistance or expansion, funding, things like that. It's interesting because incubators, where this is the hot new term, are not new. The first business incubator was actually started in 1958, and it was a commercial building that was abandoned, about 850,000 square feet. And that has now grown to an incubator center, an entrepreneurship center of about 25 acres that employs 300 people just to run the incubator center. And in those early days of business incubation, the facility itself was the key innovation. These kind of generation one incubators merged real estate, some facility, some early shared services like shared copiers and maybe telephone networks and such, and reactive business support. But industry leaders early on recognized that business incubation and the process represented the critical determinant of business success, and that the facility, no matter how impressive, would ever constitute an incubator. The evolution of incubators has been going on and has now reached a unique stage in its development of being community-centric. So in the early stages, the facility was really the key. You had to have a place. And that the services were very early, very nascent, very basic, and all of the support was reactive. Company would say, I need help doing X, I need help creating a website. Although in 1958 there were no websites. And the incubator organization would then go and find resources that could assist them. In Generation 2, started to now create more of a standardized business coaching and a program. Things where education and programmatic things such as Entrepreneurship 101 or general marketing, sales training, things that would help businesses at different points along their life cycle started to bring into the facility and become more programmatic. And now as we move into Generation 3 and even into Generation 4 in some cases, now there's an opportunity to assist companies in proactive support, mentors, and then also provide services and access into funding. Incubators are a key to success. And the key to success was and is really in creating proactive business support, including business coaching, marketing assistance, sales assistance, counseling, mentors. And by focusing on performance targets, benchmarks, program participation, oversight, tracking and reporting, companies, really accountability. Companies in a business incubator program are more likely to succeed. Russ, as part of the National Business Incubator Association, share with us a little bit about the history and your perspective on incubators.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Jack, you know, how these have changed over the years. The Small Business Administration has statistics that show that of businesses that just start out on their own, in 5 years, 80% are actually out of business. They don't survive. As you can see by the slide on the screen, NBIA statistics show you know, there's somewhere about an 87% survival rate of companies that go through a true incubation program, and that is typically because the entrepreneur is allowed to pick up the skills and things necessary to actively run a business. Most of the entrepreneurs that we work with are specialists in their particular subject matter area, but know very little about running a business.
It's interesting that while incubators and things like, you know, the generic presentation of a business timeline, things like the Valley of Death, there is no typical incubator association though. There are certain best practices though that all incubators adhere to in terms of their support. Things like providing facilities to entrepreneurs that allow them to reduce their risks through the programs, through the support, through the teaching, through the coaching and counseling. Lower their capital and operating costs by providing services and resources that would not typically be available to them or would be prohibitively expensive. And then ultimately proactively assisting in their early success. Another best practice is to provide coaching and business building training programs to teach best business practices, foster competitiveness, and empower the entrepreneurs to become self-sufficient. These are the things that I spent 12 years in Silicon Valley, and there is a certain energy associated with entrepreneurship and innovation in bars and restaurants and things like that. And so those hallway conversations where you can share best practices and even competitiveness across businesses is an important best practice. And then ultimately, as a best practice, provide education, leadership, encouragement of entrepreneurship, and innovation and general business creativity. The norms of business incubation are just as flexible or just as unique. And the businesses that would be in, say, a rural incubator in West Texas are going to be significantly different than the business incubator that you would find at Gateway Community College and in the greater Phoenix area. But there are some consistencies. So most of it is the diversity of space. You need to have a certain amount of space to facilitate having enough diversity of facility and space and clients, and that flexibility across the layout means that you can be somewhat self-sustaining in revenue derived from the lease rates, and that since it is part of the entrepreneurship environment, you're looking at providing a good deal and sometimes matching fund arrangements or floating loan funds. And that the visibility and location of the building is important. It needs to be accessible. It needs to have a certain amount of visibility to the business community and the market in general. Incubators, however, do not exist in a vacuum. They are community-centric. To be successful, they need to be available and they need to be centered around the community. We use the metaphor of the pebble in the pond, where our incubator may be the central point or the initial point of contact, but our ability to involve business leaders and mentors and coaches and community leaders and funding sources, and then other incubators. We want all the incubators to succeed. Russ and NASET have taken the lead at generating a statewide business incubator association, part of the National Business Incubator Association, and ultimately all of the incubators and all the entrepreneurship within a community should coordinate and be aware of and be consistent and certainly be helpful to the community at large. And then community groups and resources associated with whether they're community action organizations or private partnerships, the city, state, and across. All of these things are important to coordinate. All these things are important to have a perspective on, and all these things are important to coordinate your activities with. What is clear, and that what has been important in the development of successful incubators, is that it is absolutely a mission-driven organization, a clear, concise, succinct, and consistent application of what it is that incubator, that organization is supposed to achieve. And that through assessments of the market and understanding what kinds of businesses are likely to be found, to be successful, and need to be nurtured, it's responsive to the market. The leadership and organization and the management of the organization needs to have a wealth of experience and access into that community that we spoke of earlier, and that the quantifiable outcomes, the predictability of success, and the expectation of this success comes from being very selective in your client intake. Community-centric is absolutely the watchword. It's the foundation from which all of this springs. So what have we learned over the last 53 years? Just like all businesses, and I think most of our politicians have been saying this recently, that it is difficult to predict winners. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. And that companies, while typically having similar needs, the range of services is going to be different for different companies at different stages of development. Back in the dot-bomb days, there was a great business billboard in New York on the Long Island Expressway leading into the Midtown Tunnel. And it was from a consulting company. And in very internet-ease script, it said E-I-E-I-O, it's just business. Because the rules for business don't change. The vocabulary of the business, of the technology of the market may change. But the rules don't typically change. Some businesses may never grow beyond something that is for a personal lifestyle. Those that are looked at creating a certain amount of income, family businesses, and those may not be part of an incubator program, and recognizing that early on is important. And most important, just like we're looking at here in polling, it's important to consistently and constantly and relentlessly poll the tenants, the marketplaces, the community at large to learn what new services might be needed. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, social media and learning about Facebook wasn't on anybody's radar. Now, we did a seminar in Flagstaff, and it was one of the most well-attended events and lunch and learn programs that we did.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to ask our audience to type in any questions or comments that you may have into the chat box, and we remind you to please type them to this room so that others can follow along. And while those questions are coming in, we have a couple that have already come in. So I'd like to ask our presenters a couple of those questions. Is the price tag for an incubator intimidating, and can they ultimately be self-sustaining?
Actually, an interesting question. In private incubation, where you're looking at funding and becoming self-sustaining and self-sufficient right at the beginning, it's different than in a public incubator or one that's publicly funded. If you're building a building or if you're retrofitting a building, those may be different too. Intimidating, perhaps. It is not insignificant to be an incubator with a certain amount of patience associated with acquiring companies and the resources and the services and the network of support necessary. There's a certain amount of patience in being able to fill the building with clients and to offset some of the operating costs. We'll talk more about what the CEI program looked like. It is not typically for the faint of heart. We certainly recommend that there is a feasibility study and that the incubator has a certain amount of mission and focus and direct tying into the market to offset some of those risks. but the dollar figures can vary.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that some of these programs start in a virtual manner. They do not all start out with a facility. However, historically it's been hard for these programs to last over time if in the long-term planning they were not looking to actually provide space.
Okay, thank you. And can a CBO provide incubator services without housing the business? And is that that may be what you just addressed, Russ, as far as it being virtual? Or is this a different question?
No, I think it's a good question, and you can provide the services. In fact, on a lot of incubators, they will have two types of clients. One is a resident client who takes space, who needs laboratory space, food kitchen space, whatever it is the incubator is providing. And secondly, there's what we call an affiliate client, which is a company that needs the services, but they may already have a building, they may already have an office, but they need the management, development, the mentoring, and the coaching aspects.
I see.
I think the characteristics are not typically determined by whether or not it's a facility or not. There is always the cachet that says you could have the best facility in the world, but if you don't have the programs and the coaching, the counseling, mentoring, all of the things necessary to support the businesses, then it doesn't really matter how good the facility is. Likewise, you could have the best programs in the world, and to Russ's point, the longevity of that may be affected by not having a facility. Certainly the marrying of a state-of-the-art facility and best-in-class kinds of programs are typically better to ensure the successes of the businesses.
Okay. And we have a specific question regarding incubators in medical schools that you might be aware of. So if you are, maybe you can respond in the chat box. And Jack, let's go ahead and continue on with the presentation then.
Certainly. So let's talk a little bit about the CEI story, what the focus of the Gateway Incubator is, and where we've come from and where we began.
I'm going to take some time now and describe to you how we created the CEI, how it came to be, and how it integrates in a larger Entrepreneurial Institute vision on our campus, and then really why this fits on a community college campus. And first, about 5.5 years ago, we wrote some grants, and we leveraged grant dollars and created a public-private partnership. One of our grant funders was with our city of Phoenix, and they were looking for bioscience wet lab space, and we successfully received that grant, and then we leveraged it with the Economic Development Administration and funding from the feds. And that the mission of that grant was to create jobs, so it serves as an economic development engine within our community. And then we had a private funder, and then dollars within our community college district. So we were able to completely fund this building to $6 million project with no mortgage. So one of our questions earlier is how is it can it be profitable? And yes, it can be. And I think when we look at the actual size of this facility, it is a little bit smaller. When all is said and done, will be about 18,000 square feet, and it is a little bit smaller than the range of profitability that's recommended at about 25,000 to 30,000 square feet that Jack talked about. But because we don't have the mortgage on it, it allows us and will allow us, according to our pro formas, to begin to look at profitability in about year 3, and so on after that. So a little bit about how we put this together and what this is a part of. Gateway Community College in Phoenix has a vision to be a center of excellence in the entrepreneurial arena with the Entrepreneurial Institute. And the Institute has really 4 prongs, and it begins with youth entrepreneurial initiatives. And those initiatives will then, the youth will come for after-school programs, summer camps, and they'll begin to work their way as they progress through their high school years to become students at our college. And then we are in the process of putting together a student incubator, and so students will matriculate into that and be able to have programs and services that we'll discuss a little bit later, but that will be available to our students in that arena as well. And then as we continue on that continuum of entrepreneurial education, then it would be providing those services for those students as they begin to look at where are their companies and are we positioning them to move into our incubator, our CEI incubator as we just opened. And that is the first one out of the gate just because we had some grant deadlines. But all of these 4 prongs coupled with the 4th one being entrepreneur education at all different levels for these various different target groups. And we're providing education for these different levels from a variety of different sources. And we've got education from mentors. We have education from executive coaching. We have partners on campus with the Small Business Development Center, and we'll go into more detail. Those partners form the education component coupled with our curriculum at our campus that creates a comprehensive overview of how this is all put together to create an entrepreneurial institute. And so that's the feeder at the various different target groups. So why is this a good fit for a community college? We feel it fits our mission very, very well, and it aligns with who we are. We have many occupation-based programs, and our students are learning curriculum and competencies in their particular field. But as they may choose to take their technician level training to open a business, they're not getting that type of training. So looking at infusing entrepreneurship and entrepreneur curriculum across the curriculum and in a curriculum-based, occupation program-based college is a very good fit. In addition to that, we are very embedded in our community, and various partnerships that we are aligned with allow us the opportunity to continue to enhance these partnerships and the collaboration between students and faculty to really make this model work. Students will work in the CEI. They will be able to shadow business owners. They will be able to participate in research projects and in projects based on their industry area of study. We have manufacturing. We have various other ancillary benefits here on campus that our tenants within our CEI will be able to use. So there's a lot of synergy, and the partnerships between faculty and subject matter experts in their field, students and tenants, really create a very robust environment at all levels, from youth through the tenant and business owner in our CEI, to provide really one stop for small business development and entrepreneurship here in our region.
The mission of CEI is actually pretty clear. It's really interesting that despite all of the entrepreneurship and direction and some of the things that we get from the benefit of linking within and being part of the college as well as the community, the objectives are actually very, very clear. Create employment. Part of the EDA grant, and mostly because of the EDA grant, is to create employment opportunities. So linking the students and being able to do internships and externships and create a business experience may create opportunities as well as what the companies do. And we're looking to create business services that are targeted, that are aligned with the companies and the markets that we're dealing with, and to create a link between the college, the community, the businesses, and the marketplace in general. We deal with bio and life sciences, some clean tech technology, and look to bring technology development as well as the markets in compelling and direct and very well-defined areas, bringing in managerial talent, some early stage capital, and education and training not only for our clients, both resident and affiliate, but also the students.
So NASET has developed a comprehensive program that has received a bit of recognition, principally because we stick to the core values of business. And what I mean by that is I'll go through a little bit later explaining some of the things that we look for, but we're looking for a specific entrepreneur and a specific technology at a specific place and time that makes sense. We've also been putting together, as Jack mentioned earlier, a statewide incubation program. So there's a support network of these, and it creates opportunities between businesses when we do that. Additional things that we've created through that opportunity of networking is what we're calling azcorelabs.com. And this is an opportunity for programs that have manufacturing capabilities, prototyping, core labs, to have one place for entrepreneurs to go to and learn about things, the places they can go and have processing and things done to expedite the commercialization of their products into markets. We also offer things like SolidWorks, which is advanced CAD simulation software for clients to use and check out. A lot of the clients can't afford $15,000 a seat that it's cost. And so through this networking, we were able to manage that and give them what they need at a time when they really cannot afford it.
Interesting that NASET began as a virtual incubator 8 years ago. And to the earlier question about the viability of a virtual incubator, certainly that success led to building a building in 2008. And the success
it did, Jack. You're right. And for us, it's also about having the statistics for the community. So as you can see on this slide, we are about creating jobs. And these are typically higher wage jobs. About 50% of our clients are pre-revenue. We have clients with burn rates or monthly expenses up to $1 million a month that they're going through. So they're hiring engineers, they're hiring scientists and people. And so it's important, again, to be sure that they stay really focused. We also assist in fundraising. Over $46 million in 2010 and another $23 million was raised last year in 2011. We also help coordinate these clients to different state and federal grants that may be available, making sure that they know of the availability of these, helping them with applications, and then also helping them with compliance. But one of the big pieces of our program is what we refer to as our mentors group, and we currently have 75 individuals, attorneys, CPAs, IT experts that each give at least 2 hours a month of pro bono time. So we're able to get clients to professionals at the specific time in their business development that they need it.
Interesting part of the story Russ and I were just sharing, because this year's competition with the Arizona Commerce Authority is starting up. And I think you shared with me last year the businesses that came out of NASET secured 57% of the state funds that came from that competition. So let's take a look at the core program elements, because these are all linked and all leveraged to create success. The facilities are a key part, as we will share with you our facilities and what we've built and how we manage it. But the main thing is to hold accountability. Our programs require open book accounting. We do monthly and quarterly business reviews. We do things like, we call them live fire exercises, where companies will present in front of an advisory board or a member board. And this kind of oversight, coupled with proactive business support services and coaching and counseling and mentoring, which we'll talk in depth about here, is really part of the linkage and the glue that holds this program together and has a real chance for success for our businesses. So I'll share with you our facilities. As Susie talked about, ultimately this will become in about an 18,000 square foot facility, actually in two phases. Phase one, which is a little over 12,500 square feet, is now just opening and is located on 40th and Van Buren in the Gateway Community College campus in the heart of the Discovery Triangle. It is, in incubator parlance, a mixed-use non-retail. We do not take lifestyle businesses or retail businesses. We're looking at those companies that are in bio, clean technology and such. 40% of the space is actually wet lab and bio-related labs already set up and with the facilities. Negative air, the OSHA, hazardous waste material handling, things like that. Although the whole building is plumbed for bio with the air handling and such, and can in fact be expanded upon. So we've got good facilities to start with, but can expand. We spend a lot of time on the collaborative space, for those opportunities for those hallway conversations and places where we can hold our seminars and our teaching opportunities and our meetings, and that the clients can also utilize for meetings. And we have a number of different types of configurable spaces with lots of technology for video conferencing, for audio conferencing, for network, for presentations, for the things that will allow a business to present themselves and interact with themselves. We have hoteling offices and a permanent SBDC office. Nice oxymoron is a permanent hoteling office for our mentors and for our affiliate clients to use as well, and then the administration and leadership facilities as well. We've got a lunch facility that's also set up as a meeting room with video conferencing as well. And all of these things come together to build a program that actually has some opportunities for businesses to interact with each other, to leverage off each other, and ultimately to succeed.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of great information so far. And we're going to ask our audience to go ahead and type any additional questions or comments into the chat box now. Again, we have some that have already come in, so let's go ahead and address those. There was a question regarding community college certificates in entrepreneurship, and I believe that was answered in the chat box.
And Laura, let me add to that. We are in the process of creating a shortened certificate program for entrepreneurship to really cater to the business owner. So it is going to be a smaller number of credits. Delivery is going to be in a very different format so that it is conducive, like we said, to the business owner and not to the traditional 16-week semester. We will also be using that as an opportunity to help us prepare students as they enter into a student incubator, so the education in that. So that's forthcoming.
That's great to know. Thank you, Susie. Regarding the incubator, and I think you might have mentioned this, Jack, but do you build on spec or do you just suit your clients?
So the building was actually done as part of a feasibility study and meant to have certain expectations of the kinds of companies that we're looking to attract and to house, and then also to engage with on an affiliate basis. So was it built on spec? Sort of, but it was built in a direction. The main thing is that the space is relatively configurable. In phase one, for example, each of the offices and each of the suites are set up as Jack and Jills. So they have side connectors and side doorways. So as companies expand and companies need to have different kinds of spaces, we can expand them without having to have them leave and exit and go into different suites. In phase two, the suites will be a little bit larger. Currently, they're about 230 to 250 square feet per office per suite. In the second phase, those suites will grow to be between 300 and 700 square feet and be a different type of space, so more highly configurable, more highly adjustable, and set up for things like light industrial, early stage manufacturing, prototyping, and the like. So I think the space is such that it was built for a direction, one that was validated through a study, and more importantly, still has a lot of flexibility in use and configuration in the suites as well as the collaboration areas that we have.
And let me add, when we designed this, we designed it in a manner that would have a very flexible space, as Jack said, and we outfitted it in that capacity too with equipment and basic office equipment that tenants will need. We will work with tenants to customize space to some degree, depending what that might be.
Okay, thank you. And does CEI itself ever fund or take a position in a startup?
No, we cannot based on our statute.
Yep.
Okay, Jack, did you want to add?
No, it's part of the college mandate and statute as well. And then also NACET, which is the managing arm for the CEI Gateway project, is a 501c3. So there is no equity stake and no participation. There is certainly participation in assisting companies, whether through grant or through funding. For example, we have a great relationship with the Arizona Technology Investors Forum, or ATIF. And we can take companies to them looking for funding, and they come with a certain amount of credibility. Being part of our program and being part of what CEI is doing, those investors say, I have a certain expectation of success. Likewise, if they have a company that they've invested in that needs business development assistance and incubation assistance, they can come to us with a certain expectation that they will succeed and protect their investment. So while we do not take a stake in the company, we certainly play a role in ensuring and doing matchmaking and creating introductions and ways to secure funding.
I see.
And if I could add to that briefly, for a lot of organizations, these are typically a 501c3, so there are tax issues and complications with taking equity. In order to do it, those 501cs that do typically do an LLC outside. However, in the industry, it's becoming more and more commonplace, instead of looking for equity, moving to what we refer to as a success fee. A success fee is agreed upon milestones, sales goals through the company's pro formas that if they hit those goals, the program might get a 1 to 2% back in order to provide funding.
I see. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and continue on, and if our audience has additional questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit more about the kinds of services that CEI provides and really the kinds of community that we're creating for entrepreneurship. Mentors, which we'll spend a little bit more time on differently, is really the linchpin, as Russ talked about. It's the foundation. It's really one of the big differentiators. But we also have a large network of business advisors. These could be financial contacts in banks, in financing sources like ATIF. We create opportunities for fellowships and internships and externships, things that both our faculty and students and the community in large can participate in. The space and the infrastructure and the services and the network and all of the technology and the tools married with some administrative support is a facility now that is really state-of-the-art. We do business education classes tied in with the college, as well as those that we run and those that are run by our mentors. And then access to the kinds of facilities and programs that the college offers that Susie talked about in terms of manufacturing, if companies need to do early manufacturing or other prototyping, medical devices and the like. So it's a broad range of services. It's a breadth of services and facility, and marrying those all together that leads us to our success. We also have relationships with 8 other incubators in 6 different countries. And these are opportunities now for our companies that are looking at expansion or import-export or manufacturing and can do student-led other programs that will create feasibility studies or market assessments and analysis in these other markets as well. I think, Russ, you have a little bit more experience with this.
Yeah, we started this years ago, specifically targeting programs that were affiliated with universities so that we could take a company that had a product wanting to go into another market and have on-the-ground research. One of the interesting opportunities that it brought up for us is the ability to take teams of students that we have at the community colleges in business classes and connect them with business students in other countries to give them a little bit of a broader flair and looking at import-export opportunities. And I see the question here. We are working on connections to a Canadian incubator as we speak.
So being community-based, CEI is really an opportunity to connect resources and energy associated with entrepreneurship that is typically not found. So as we talked a little bit earlier, we have 2 different kinds of clients. We have the resident clients who will rent a suite, but we do have clients that may have different space requirements or have additional space requirements that they want to participate in the program. And for them to participate, it is the same requirement for inclusion, so the same process and the same qualifications as whether they're resident or affiliate. We do have a broad group of stakeholders. I come from the private business world, and Susie's been very helpful coming from the private business world and 14 years in the higher education world in looking at aligning our stakeholders. Speak at various organization meetings, economic and community development, city councils, and really the different stakeholders who now see success as an opportunity to be and to support our program. We have a number of community organizations and partnerships, things like Chicanos por la Casa, CPLC, which is in the same Discovery Triangle area of Greater Phoenix. They have an incubator and a business development and entrepreneurship program, but it's for different kinds of businesses. Similarly with other incubators, they have programs and different educational opportunities for their clients. And so we want to make sure that our programs and our educations and our events are made available to them and to their clients. Likewise, some of the things that they might be doing, we want to make available to our clients. And so creating this sense of a community around entrepreneurship and innovation and aligning all of the incubators, the accelerators, the community programs, and all of the innovation entrepreneurial programs that are around, and putting together in the Arizona Business Incubation Association. Our mentors are our key, and these are community leaders that are all volunteer. They're executives, they are lawyers, they're intellectual property attorneys, they're marketing experts. They may have skills in import-export and in funding, finance executives and the like. And they donate their time pro bono, about 2 hours per month. Now, of course, in finance world, we know not to bother any of our financial people from January to April 15th, but they are available and are engaged with our clients in a couple of different ways. Either our clients will recognize that they need assistance and will reach out to our mentor organization, or as part of our coaching and counseling and mentoring, we will recommend to them and identify a mentor that they may or should connect with. We also create task forces so that we create teams of mentors for different functional areas. So let's say a company is looking to expand their sales effort into a foreign country. We'll organize a team of import-export, of finance, of legal, of HR, together to help with operationalizing that effort. And most importantly, our mentor program is leveraged with the NASET mentor program, and then the partnerships with ATIF, the Discovery Triangle, the SCORE, SBDC, Desert Angels, many, many others that are programs that we can tap into and that utilize our services for their efforts, and we utilize their services for our efforts as well. The selection process is not for the faint of heart. We are very selective. It is one of the best practices that we adhere to, and that is part of the National Business Incubation Association standard. And it really comes down to making sure that the expectations and the needs of the client match with what our facilities and our organization can provide. This gap analysis is such that we have series of conversations, meetings, presentations, discussions, where those expectations of what our program looks like and what they can expect and what we expect in terms of accountability. It begins with a business plan review. Because we're taking companies in the startup early stage, far right side of that valley of death process, these companies have business plans that we look at competency in areas of what their business model is, what their technology is. Is it a disruptive technology? Is it protected technology? Is it unique? Is it different? We look at their execution. Do they have a plan? Do they have some expectations of success? Do we look at risk in their financing and their market? And then ultimately, they make a presentation to our advisory board that does a review, a scoring, and a recommendation for inclusion into our program. The risk assessment of their opportunities for success and their expectations and our ability to satisfy those expectations is always about the market. It's very interesting that when you present in front of investors and even to our advisory board, we get a lot of mad scientists, people that have a wealth of technical expertise and some unique technologies that are exciting and different and innovative. But it's not always about the technology. It's really about the market and being able to articulate and to plan and to have an expectation of the execution of success of why would someone buy. The technology is important, but it's more important to have the technology positioned properly and to understand the competitive differentiation in the landscape that technology is based upon or has an opportunity to succeed with. We look at the leadership, and sometimes in our conversations with the entrepreneur, they may be experts at the technology and the execution of the technology, but leadership, especially at a CEO level or a CFO level, may not be their strong point. And so recognizing and getting them to understand and having an objective review of their experience, their qualities, their capabilities, and how that would impact their execution of the model is important. And then we look at the business model. Who's going to buy? Why? How? How are they going to commercialize the product and the technology and operationalize it in a business model? And then as with everything, it's always about financials. These are businesses, as Russ talked about, that interestingly an incubator is burning $1 million a month. These are not trivial businesses. They have real costs, real financials, real cash flow, and making sure that there is a set of financial controls and a planning and review discipline that's part of our program. Opportunity is where this all ties together. And Susie talked a little bit about this, and we'll get her to share some more, but there is opportunity here across a broad spectrum of connections and points within our community. We will be instituting at the next year a student incubation and faculty incubation program. Those are tied into certificates and education programs in college. We have opportunities to tie in with student research teams to do feasibility studies, to do market studies, to do technology studies. We have an executive speaker series. I've had the opportunity to speak, as Russ has as well, in a number of classes already within the management program. And it's really tied into our ability to do what we do called Lunch and Learns, which is a program that we do 2, 3, 4 times a month. They are required participation by our client companies, but we open them to the community. And they are short-form topics, everything from entrepreneurship 101 to very sophisticated intellectual property discussions. We stream them live on the website, we archive them, and we make them available to the community at no charge. These are opportunities for you, your students, your faculties, and other businesses that you may have come in contact with to participate in our program either tangentially, maybe in a pre-incubation effort, or ultimately to become part of the program as well. Susie, can you share a little bit more about the stuff we're doing with the students?
Yes, and I wanted to say too, as those of you who indicated you're interested in starting an entrepreneurial program or incubator up, it's really key that the connection between faculty, staff, and students is part of your plan from an early stage. Otherwise, this will be a standalone building on your campus, not integrated with programs and services. And there's a lot to gain when you can look at students and student participation, whatever your academic programs might be for those on college campuses, and then how do you look to build that feeder and keep those entrepreneurs in the pipeline. So looking at youth initiatives and student incubation will allow us to be able to service the entire community at various different levels and their needs. So can't stress enough how important it is to have all those links so that it is a viable function within the college campus for those of you in academic worlds.
And this is not just for the students and the faculty at the community college, also diving into or driving down into the high school. We did a program up in Flagstaff called YES, or the Young Entrepreneurial Scholars. And this was an opportunity for teams of high school students to work together over a series of days, identify a business, create a business plan and direction, and shoot a video commercial that was then reviewed and scored and judged by a group of business professionals. We can tie into the junior achievement programs. So it's really an opportunity to be community-centric, and to Susie's point, to make sure that that's aligned right from the very beginning. So, summary. We talked about the objectives. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Our program is not for everybody. But there is a range of programs within the entrepreneurship and innovation world and landscape that are. Whether it's co-work space, whether it's a youth program, whether it's a faculty program, whether it's a student program, whether it's accelerating, across that entire continuum, there are things that are available. Incubation is a more diligent process. It is for the business that is looking to be successful, to go beyond lifestyle, to go beyond creating a hobby or a job and creating a business. We've talked about it many, many times. Aligning, being part of, being sponsored, and participating in the community is absolutely vital for success. It is probably the most important part, because you cannot exist on an island, you cannot exist in a vacuum. Leading with programs ensures more success than facilities, but it is programs plus facilities, being best in class and state-of-the-art at both sides, is really going to ensure success. And having the breadth of resources and programs, a mentor organization, executive leadership that has experience, connections into other business advisors and community, and the breadth of the resources is key to success and key to the opportunities that are present for all of us. Thank you very much.
All right, well, this has been a really great presentation. We're not quite done yet, but as you can see, our presenters have shared their contact information. I know there's been a lot of talk in the chat box and a lot of connections being made, so take a minute to capture this information. It will also be included in the presentation slides and recording, and we will give you information on how to access those in just a moment.
What I might also suggest too, and offer up for anybody who's in the greater Phoenix area or would like to travel here, is to offer up a tour of our facility. We're proud of it. We think we've got a real good place and a real good program, and certainly I've always found that you can talk about the programs, people nod their head and go, oh, that makes sense. But when you see the facility and talk about the programs in the context of the facility, in situ in that facility, it starts to connect, and people go, oh, I understand. Now I see where the collaboration and the kinds of programs and the spaces and the melding of all those things in the college environment and in the CDI environment come together. So please contact me directly. Would love to schedule a tour and an opportunity, and look for our website as well that we'll be launching here shortly, where we will publish a calendar of all of our events, the events of other partners, and the events of the entrepreneurship community at large and other incubators.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jack. And Laura, let me quickly add, you had posted the website for the CEI.
Yes.
And that is in a beginning website for us, and we will have a new one launching within the next couple of weeks that will be much more interactive with the things Jack just talked about.
Okay, great. It'll be at the same address, though, the CEI.com. Okay, great. Okay, at this time, we're going to ask everyone to type in any final questions or comments into the chat box. And while you are doing that, we're going to go ahead and take care of one more matter of business. I have quickly displayed a short survey on the screen. I'm going to ask our presenters to please not touch the survey or it will get dropped. But if our audience could take a moment to complete the survey and also enter any questions into the chat box, and we'll go ahead and start addressing some of the questions that have already come in. So let's see some of the questions that we have. This is a really good one that I saw come in. It says, to convince my administration to start a program, I need to supply evidence of demand. How can I best do this in this case?
I think one of the things that you have to start with is a feasibility study and see exactly which industries are out there and what your connections are. There's also at a lot of community colleges faculty who are inherently more entrepreneurial than those at a university. And so looking internally can also be a really good place to start.
Thank you, Russ. Jack or Susie, did you want to add to that at all? Or?
I think he covered it. I think he had some good points there.
Okay, great. And
feasibility study.
A feasibility study, you said?
Absolutely. You have to know what your market is and what your market will bear, and the kinds of businesses that are either present or could be attracted, or some of the programs that other universities or colleges might be in place. For example, we're starting a medical information informatics program at the college, and aligning with some clinical trial programs that are starting at ASU. This allows the students who are going into the business informatics and medical information informatics world to have opportunities within a clinical trial and align those together. That's clearly something that they were existing separately, they've now connected. And understanding what's out there in the marketplace as part of the feasibility study will lead you to decide what businesses and then ultimately what kind of configuration the facility or the program needs to take.
In addition, there are great resources available with the NBIA, the National Business Incubator Association. It has a certificate program, lots of curriculum books in their bookstore, lots of online resources. So if you're looking for feasibility or just how to get started, there's really a guide that can walk you through all of that.
Okay, great. And here's another question. What is the time it takes typically to start and launch an incubator?
Let me share with you the time it took us. We first wrote our grant 5.5 years ago, and then we took that and we leveraged it with another grant. So the funding cycle really took us a good 2 to 2.5 to 3 years to lock in place. Once we received the funding, then we began planning and with architects, and that has been a continuum. We did not take a break on that, and we just opened our doors in January. So from start to finish, it was a 5.5-year process for us. If you have funding secured, certainly you can do that in less than half of that time.
Okay, thanks. And another question, how much time do your 75 mentors spend with the proteges, and do you have more information on how you select, match, and support mentors?
Sure. Well, the time that we ask is 1 to 2 hours per month is what we set as an expectation of their pro bono time. Clearly, across a life cycle, sometimes that's more demanding. We actually have some mentors who will come and take office hours once every other week for 8 hours. And they are aligned and in demand with our clients at that. So they range. Our expectations we try and set with them is about 2 hours. The selection process is really kind of interesting. First off, we start with the fact that this is not a marketing opportunity for our mentors. These are startup early stage companies, and we want them to get used to using professional services, but they're typically not a good market to buy professional services. We do ask our mentors that in the event that the client companies want to avail their services on a fee basis, that we ask them to give them a discount off of their normal rate. The selection process is really around leadership, experience, discipline, and trying to make sure that the skills are well articulated, their experience is well articulated, and what they can bring and provide to the client communities, to our proteges, is well articulated as well. We do not have generic terms of he's a marketing professional. No, these are marketing professionals in the discipline of branding or creative or website or social media. Marketing may be the category, but the disciplines are well articulated. And then
it's also go ahead, Jack.
And then the process goes into the interview, the capturing of their bios, a little discussion. Most of our mentors are referred from other mentors that find this to be a unique opportunity to give back and to participate. So they come highly recommended, but we do community outreach as well to find them.
The other aspect of that is really managing the whole process. So we actually have an automated system where clients can go on, look at those bios, select the mentor that they want to meet with, put in what they want to talk about so the mentor can prepare put-in times, that's an automated system for a mentor's office, and then after they meet, the mentor fills out a form that tells us first, this is what I heard, because it's not always what the client says they're going in with, and secondly, these are my recommendations. And then that comes back to us and helps us as we're coaching the client.
Yeah, we talked about accountability, and so making sure that we understand what the intent of requesting the mentor is through that process, and ultimately what the mentor heard in terms of need and opportunity, and then what the mentor either recommended or guided them to do is something that we can hold them accountable to and use as part of our monthly and quarterly business reviews. So we're trying to create a 360-degree loop that ties the opportunity for support by the mentors into the accountability side of our program and the development of the businesses.
Sounds like a very, very valuable program. We have another question that is a good question, and Susie, maybe you can answer this. Regarding staffing, how many people, in total will you have dedicated to this project? Or Jack, maybe you're better to answer that. But internally, what is your staffing plan going to look like?
Well, our partnership with NACET allows us to really leverage that, and particularly bring a brand new startup in. We will be in 2 years because of that partnership, where it probably would have taken us 4 or 5 to get the foundation up and running. So NACET's team helps us. We have one, Jack is a dedicated full-time employee here on site, and then we have another coordinator that is a gateway employee, and I help provide the leadership in that capacity. So. But as we ramp up and continue to grow, we will begin to look at what opportunities there are to grow staffing as well.
I see. Okay, well those are great questions, and by now everyone should have completed the survey. So let us share a little bit more with you. If you didn't have a chance to complete the survey, the link is right here. Or if you're watching the recording later, you can come back and take the survey at this link. We appreciate your feedback very much. As I mentioned earlier, and as I just mentioned again, the webinar was recorded, and we will email you information with how to access the recording and slides when they're available. They will be included in the Maytech Network's digital library at maytechnetworks.org. You'll be able to do a keyword search with the words Webinar Entrepreneurial Development, and those should be available within the next couple days, so keep an eye out for that email. We'd like to also invite you to attend our upcoming webinars. The next 3 on the list are Innovative Manufacturing, Earning Credentials, and a Master's Series webinar from STEM to STEAM, emphasizing the importance of arts in STEM. All of our webinars and most of our webinar archives are conveniently located on our website at maytechnetworks.org/growth.php. And if you attended the live version of the webinar and would like a certificate of participation, we're happy to send you one. Please email m.vendor@domail.maricopa.edu, and I will type that in the chat box as well. We would like to thank our expert presenters. This has been a great, valuable presentation, so thank you to all 3 of you. Thank you to our audience. I will click back to the presenter contact information page so that you have that, because I'm sure that you will like to follow up with our presenters. And I thank you all. Have a great day.